Hello everyone! With this video I want to show you how you can block X, husks and aoes at Triple Trouble. I will start telling you a bit more about the event in general, then I will explain blocking step by step. This will include basic info about blocking itself and preparations. For the exact builds and ways to block on the single classes, I will add more videos. If you would like to skip to some specific part, simply click on its timestamp in the description. There you can also find links to the other videos and written guides. Have fun! First of all, for anyone who doesn't know the event too well yet, Triple Trouble, or in short TT, is a Great World Wars event, which takes place in the southern half of Bloodtide Coast. The goal here is killing the 3 heads of the evolved jungle worm. Achieving this goal does not only require a good amount of players, but also a lot of coordination. Before the actual fight starts, 3 escorts, the pre-events, need to be completed. These are still very easily doable even with low numbers. Each escort will lead to one of the areas where the worms spawn. The worms will not take any damage at the start. First, a mechanic needs to be done to trigger an about 30-second long burn phase. On Amber, players need to be eaten to get harpoons to then shoot them at the worm. On Crimson, 3 containers need to be filled with phytotoxin buffs. And on Cobalt, kegs need to be brought to the worm from one of 3 possible spots. Now, it's not enough to just deal good damage. Also, the 3 worms need to be decapitated within the same minute, else it is not possible to reach the second phase and to kill the worms for the full rewards. With the amount of coordination needed, Triple Trouble is different than pretty much all the other world bosses. Just having a few commanders to get people onto the map is not enough. But still, that's not everything. The worms also spit out eggs, which can hatch into larvae, and husks. These are not only very annoying ads, but they can be very dangerous as well, especially when they interrupt the group from doing the mechanics. However, there is a way to stop eggs and husks from getting out. That's the task of the blockers. Now let's have a closer look at this so very important task. What exactly is blocking? What do you need to know to block successfully? And how can you get started? What is blocking? As already mentioned before, during the first phase of the event, so after the escorts are completed until the heads are decapitated, the worms will spit out eggs, which can hatch into larvae, husks and aoes, if you let them. The blockers are the ones who stop the worms from spitting out too much annoying stuff. For that, the blockers usually stand inside the worm and use reflection or invulnerability skills when the worm spits. To keep each arena clear, there should be at least 3 blockers on the map, 1 for each worm. What skills are used? There are 2 groups of skills which are useful for blocking. One being skills that make you invulnerable, as for example Distortion from Mechanist or the Guardian Elite Renewed Focus. Skills like these can block everything, X, husks and aoes. However, there are not that many skills in the game that can make you invulnerable. The other group of skills that we are interested in is anything that can stop enemy projectiles. So skills that can either reflect, like the wall of reflection from Guardians or feedback from Mechanist, destroy projectiles, like the smoke screen from Thieves or the Druid Staff 5 wall, or block for a duration, as for example the healing skill Shelter from Guardians. Single attack blocks like aoes can also block eggs, but are not very useful as the worm will spit multiple eggs at a time. Important! All these projectile destroy, reflect or block skills do only stop eggs. They will not block husks or aoes. In the following, I will for the most part only say reflects or projectile destroy skills to make it easier. This will always mean all possible skills of this category to block eggs. Attacks. If you want to block, you should know the attacks of the worm, what they look like, and if you need to dodge them or use blocking skills. Each worm has the same 4 attacks. One of them is the wide spin, blocking-wise the least interesting attack. The worm keeps its head relatively high above the ground, first turning it slowly clockwise behind its body, then it swings its head faster the other direction, so counterclockwise, and closer to the ground. With this faster move, there is a big orange AoE visible on the ground. This indicates an incoming knockback. You want to dodge, block or evade this attack to not take damage and to not lose your position inside the worm. Do not use any skills on the wide spin that you need for blocking. Stability is also an option, but without another block or very tanky gear, you will take a lot of damage. Another attack is the small spin with AoE speed. Its animation is a bit of the opposite of the wide spin attack we saw before. For this attack, the worm first curls up its head counterclockwise, close to the ground. Then it starts spinning the other direction, so clockwise. With the spin, there is another orange AoE with the same knockback and damage that you know from the wide spin attack. But at the same time, the worm spits out many green balls, marked as small AoEs on the ground. These are aimed randomly at players or other possible targets, and deal a lot of damage, especially when multiple AoEs hit the same spot. It is possible to block these AoE spits with invulnerability, so that the green damaging balls do not appear at all. However, depending on your class and some other points, you may not want to use your invul skills to save them for an incoming husk spit. To block the AoE spit, you need to be invulnerable the moment that the worm starts moving its head the other way, just as or just after the orange AoE appears. So if you're for example using the Signet of Midnight on Mesmer, which, with the right trait, will give you 1 second of invulnerability instantly, you can activate it just before the worm head is all the way curled up. You usually want to activate it a little bit early, as there always is a bit of a reaction delay. If you want to use the Healing Signet, which has a 1 second cast time, you need to activate it even earlier. For me this works out fine when I start casting the Healing Signet when the worm head reaches the position of the second husk spot on my screen. Or in other words, on Cobalt the jumping puzzle spot, on Crimson the bush near the triple color spot, or on Amber the boxes near the tree. For the start, I would recommend not focusing on blocking AoEs too much. Just make sure that the attack will not hit you, so either dodge or evade it. The most important attacks for blockers are egg and husk spits. With each spit, the worm first points its head towards the right, looking from inside the worm, and closes its mouth. Then pulls its head back a little to finally move a bit forward again, and with that spit out either a single husk or a few eggs. This will repeat 2 more times a bit farther to the left, so that in total the worm spits out 3 times 1 husk, or 3, 3 and 4 eggs with 1 full spit. There cannot be a mixed spit of eggs and husks. Both spits have the exact same animation. That means you need another way to distinguish between egg and husk spit. If the spit is not blocked, it is quite obvious, as you will see eggs or husks flying from the worm. But you want to know which skill type, so reflect or invulnerability, to use before the worm spits, and you want to know what it spits without seeing eggs or husks fly. Well, there are two more indicators. When you block a spit with invulnerability, not with reflect, you will see a white text on your character saying invulnerable. This text will appear once for every husk and every egg blocked. So, when you see only a single invul message on a part spit, it is a husk spit. If you see 3 or 4 invuls on a part spit, it's eggs. This also works for blocking aoes. Here you will see many invulnerable texts at once. This method does have a catch. Only one player will be able to see the invul messages. That means, if you are blocking with another person, try to communicate what you have blocked. For example, by typing E for eggs or H for husks in the chat. Also be aware that the text from other mobs can show additional invul texts. For another way of knowing what the worm is about to spit, you should remember when the worm did its last husk and possibly its last egg spit. Eggs can be spit every 40 seconds, husks every 90 seconds on Amber and Crimson, on Cobalt every 80 seconds. That means, at the very start of the event, both egg and husk spit are possible. If the worm starts with spitting eggs and spits again right after that, the second spit must be husks. Or if the worm starts with spitting husks, the next spit right after must be eggs. As the cooldown on husks is about twice as long as the cooldown on eggs, the worm often does what we call a double spit. That means it spits twice in a row, once eggs, once husks in either order. Then there will be a single spit of eggs while husks are still on cooldown. After that, we often get to a point where the worm has both spits ready again. The worm doesn't always have to follow this pattern of doing double spits and one egg spit in between. Especially burn phases can mess with this pattern, as the cooldown timers keep ticking down through the burn phases. One more point about the spits. To be able to block an entire spit, you need to have at least 3.5 seconds of invulnerability or reflect. You can either use a single skill that lasts long enough, or you can combine different skills. Next to the 4 attacks, White Spin, AoE Spit, Egg and Husk Spits, there are a few more extra animations, like Cobalt eating kegs or Amber spitting out players. Especially this one, the spit out animation, can be mistaken for a husk or egg spit by beginners. The invul spot. Blockers usually don't just want to stand somewhere inside the worm's hitbox, but on a very exact spot, right in the middle. That we call the invul spot. Exact positioning is so important because invul skills will only block when you use them on the spot. Any AoE reflect skills will block as long as they cover the invul spot. When you use invulnerability and see the white invul messages, you are standing on the right spot. Finding the correct spot can be a bit tricky at the start, and taking just one step too far to the side can mean you are not on the right spot anymore. I personally prefer to just recognize the spot. When the event starts, or if you need to reposition yourself, zoom in to see the ground. You will see some kind of rock structure. This is where the from the outside visible part of the worm comes out of the ground. In the middle of these rocks there is grass or water depending on the head you are on. You want to stand in the middle of the rocks. For another way to find the spot, zoom in just enough to not see the worm around you anymore. Turn your camera in a way that you look down onto your character from above, then attack. You will see 0 as damage numbers. Some of these zeros are a bit bigger and have a red background. These come from critical hits and show up on the invuln spot. This is where you want to stand. Let's have a little overview of what we have learned so far. X can be blocked with reflex and invulnerability. The worm can spit them every 40 seconds. Blocking X with invuln skills will show the invuln message 3 to 4 times on each of the part spits. Husks can only be blocked with invulnerability, same for aoes. The worm can spit husks every 80 to 90 seconds. Blocking husks with invuln skills will show the invuln message only once on each of the part spits. Animations are the same for both spits. You need to have at least 3.5 seconds of invulnerability or reflect to block. Now you know the theoretical part of blocking. Let's get to the choice of a class and preparations. Not every class can possibly block all X, husks and aoes. Generally speaking, a class or a specialization becomes more useful the more it can block. Also, on some it is easier to block than with others. So let's have a look at what each of the classes can block. I'd recommend taking Mesmer if you want to learn blocking. Mesmers, ideally as Mirage, but Core Mesmer works as well, can block all X, all husks and all aoes relatively easily. You also have a way to evade the spin attacks without moving. The two next best options in my opinion are Thief and Elementalist. These two can block all X and all husks too. On top of that, they may not be able to block every aoe, but at least some. Blocking on these two classes is a little bit more difficult. On Ellie, you often need to combine multiple skills to block a full spit, and you cannot see all of your cooldowns all the time. On Thief, your invuln skill has a little activation delay, and acquiring the skill takes some preparation time. If you don't pay attention, you can even lose the skill. If you cannot, or if you don't want to take any of the 3 classes just mentioned before, the next best options are Scrapper, that's the HOT specialization of Engie, which can work as well, but here I would recommend to go with Scrapper, or Guardian. These two can block all X, but only 2 of the 3 husks. That means when the worm spits husks, you will let one of them out and can only block the second and the third husk. The reason is that both Engie and Guardian only have 1 invuln skill, and the Guardian skill only lasts long enough to block 2 of the 3 husks. The Engie skill with traits does last long enough to technically block all 3 husks of a spit. But to be able to make use of this, you must know that the worm is going to spit husks and not X for sure, which is the case when the worm first spits X, then husks on the double spit. If you have a Sylvari engineer, you can use Take Roots as a lead skill to get another invuln skill, which, however, has a very high cooldown so that you still couldn't block all husks reliably. Revenant, Druid and Warrior can be used to block X, but as they do not have any invulnerabilities, they can neither block husks nor aoes. Egg blocking with Revenant is quite simple. Druid is not too complicated either. Warrior is a bit more difficult. The only class that cannot even block X reliably is Necro. I hope this overview helps you with the decision for a class. Now, how do you prepare for blocking and how will you make your first steps? Once you have chosen a character, you should equip the weapons, skills and traits needed for blocking. I will give you more info on these later and also tell you how to block with the different classes. Check the video links in the description. You may want to look at your gear as well. Keep your task in mind. You want to block. Therefore you need to be alive. Dealing damage does not matter to you. So as a basic rule, you want to be as tanky as needed to survive. Having some toughness or vitality can definitely help, especially on your first tries. If you want, you can even take food which will increase your endurance regeneration, so you can dodge more often, like bowl of meat and winter vegetable stew, or, for example, mango pies for health regeneration. When you are all set up, you can become active on the event itself, but that doesn't have to mean trying to block something right away. For the start, it can be a good idea just trying to be inside the worm, recognizing its animations and dodging the spin attacks. Tell your commander and other blockers before the event if you want to practice. There will still be an experienced blocker taking care of the actual blocking. You can also check out their positioning. When you feel comfortable with avoiding the spins, you can try using the right skills at the right time. Again, inform the others if you're planning to do so. Finally, when you think you are doing fine, you can give it a go and block yourself. You should still have someone with you to back you up, so don't worry if things don't go as planned. Another option is going to a non-organized map when there are some people to do the escorts, so that you can try blocking all by yourself. This is a good opportunity to check how well you can block already. Now, if you would like to follow me to one of the next parts of this guide, I will tell you how you can block on your preferred class. Once again, links in the description.